Yo, what's up, everybody? Today, I'm going to be reacting to a Sam Harris video. While I do, feel free to come on up to change my mind. Ops only, Jesus is God, abortion is murder, Islam is demonic, and atheism is folly. So you know where I stand? Let me know if you want to come on up. I have a lot of rage bait on my shorts, and I like to then go live and give people the opportunity to join me to see if they can handle the points that I'm making instead of just emoting in the chats. So I promise to be nice, but you have to stay on subject and be respectable. Feel free to come and change my mind. Because I only have like 1 or 2 viewers, I'll react to a video to keep this interesting. Today, they're going to be talking about the self. Notice this right here. Why you don't really exist. So I don't want people saying that my rage bait, which I use on purpose through the shorts, is being deceptive. Yes, it may be making you upset or purposely trying to draw in the atheist. But I want to tell you right now, I am not lying when I tell you that they use the self to deny the self. I'm not lying. I'm telling you the truth. That's how these things are titled. That's what Sam is going to say in just a few moments. And we'll see if we can listen to some others. But I'm more concerned about what he has to say. I'll be interrupting as we go because, of course, that's copyright stuff if I just let it play the whole time. So please don't say, he interrupts too much. That's what we're here for, folks. Otherwise, you can watch it by yourself, right? But thank you for joining. Chat if you care. Tell me where you're listening from. And then if you know of any ops, any people that fit into that description of who we can debate today, feel free to share it with them. Let them know I'm right here. I'm ready for them.
Consciousness is the one thing in this universe that actually can't be an illusion, right? I mean, even if we're in the matrix, this is just a simulation. If we're confused about everything, if our physics is fake physics because we're not in touch with the base layer of reality, if this is all a dream, if you're the only person who exists and we're all in your dream, no matter how confused you could be about the nature of reality, one thing you can't be confused about is that something seems to be happening. And that seeming is the fact of consciousness.
Should we give up the idea of distinct selves as simply incoherence?
Notice right here that that's the question. Do we need to give up the notion of ourselves? And he's going to basically answer yes. Just listen to him. So that was the question. Should we give up the notion of ourselves? And now just think of the contradiction we're already dealing with here. Should we, as a self, a person talking to another self, give up the notion of a self? That would be like me saying, hey, as I speak English, should I give up the notion that I'm speaking English? Another way of saying it would be, hey, as I am here as the product of my parents, should I give up the notion that my parents had any children that lived? Do you understand how this kind of nonsense is becoming normal among this crowd? But it is donkey brained. And don't come to me complaining about me using the word donkey brain when it's the most it is the most like kindest way to describe this behavior. I'm not cursing. I'm literally just calling it folly by a funny name. It's donkey brain.
Well, first let me say it's a pleasure to almost be there with you. It sounds like I'm escaping the sweltering heat, but it's an honor to be invited. Thank you. Well, there's one sense of the term self, and it's I believe it's the most common one, and it's the sense that we feel subjectively, most of us, most of the time, which I think is genuinely an illusion and leads to other illusions, cognitive and moral. It's the other side of the coin of the sense of free will that.
Yeah. So right there, am I making it up when I say that they believe the self is an illusion? Of course not. So that's what they believe. And just to let you see how I do this, and I encourage others to do it as well, when I want to make sure I get all the points right here, I go to the info portion of the discussion. I go up here to where it says transcripts right here. And I copy these transcripts and I put them into chat. And then notice this. See, I got all the transcripts right here, right? So I put it into chat and then I ask it a couple basic questions to break it down. So break down the people in this conversation, their worldview, and and the things that are being used here, right? So that's what I ask it, right? Now here's the chat. Here's a transcript, and then here's the chat now answering it. So it's going to tell me Sam Harris, that he's an atheist, right? And it's going to go through it. Roger Penrose, and then this woman right here. And then because I already have my beliefs into the chat and do debates with it, I set up my arguments, the self dilemma, which I already have, it will now begin to make a table like it did here of their beliefs, and then now show how I can defeat it. Now, when I start asking it to be unbiased, I can ask it to do that, right? It will tell me how to understand this as an unbiased observer. But because I already have my arguments in here and I want to learn to see if they're refuting them or whatever, that's how I put it in. So that's what I do. And it's clear that he's already in contradiction. He's acknowledging the self by being one right now while calling it an illusion. I just want to replay this so you don't think I'm making this up. Listen to the question and listen to how he answers it.
Well, first let me say it's a pleasure to almost.
Yeah, let me show you the question right here and then how he answers, okay?
And that seeming is the fact of consciousness.
Should we give up the idea of distinct selves as simply incoherence?
Well, first let me say it's a pleasure to almost be there with you. It sounds like I'm escaping the sweltering heat, but it's an honor to be invited. Thank you. Well, there's one sense of the term self, and it's I believe it's the most common one, and it's the sense that we feel subjectively, most of us, most of the time, which I think is genuinely an illusion and leads to other illusions, cognitive and moral. It's the other side of the coin of the sense of free will that puzzles so many people. So, I would ask you to just notice this feeling in yourself if you have it, and if you're like 99% of people, you'll get this sense that you feel that there is a subject, a kind of unchanging point from which you notice experience, which doesn't leave you merely identical to experience. Rather, you feel like you're appropriating your experience. You're having an experience. There's a place from which you can aim your attention at the various objects of experience, and most of, if not all of your experience has this subject-object character where you're the subject, noticing sights and sounds and sensations and thoughts and moods, and that subject is an illusion. And we can know that really from two sides. First of all, from the third person side, neurologically, it makes no sense. There's no place in the brain for your ego to be hiding.
Notice what he says right here. So the self is an illusion. We know this scientifically, okay? And this is where I stopped the video yesterday, if anybody happened to tune in, being one of those viewers that I had. And so what he's saying there is that there's no place that we can physically observe the self. Well, guess what else we can't physically do? We can't physically observe consciousness. All we notice is brain states, okay? So here I have the book, and I know that this is one of his specialties, so I'm not trying to challenge him on this, right? But here I have the book, what's the name of this book? How the mind, how religion affects the brain. I have it on my Kindle, and this is where I got lost, and I pulled it up here. Here we go. Yeah, Nuremberg's book, and I have it here, okay? And basically, what he's trying to say is that we can't find, okay? We can't find where the self is. Where do you think we can find where consciousness is either? So this is where I would say calling the duck, calling something the same, calling the duck by a different name doesn't mean it's not a duck. And here's the book I'm referring to. I have it on my Kindle. I just literally shut down my live feed yesterday because I went way too deep into this, but it's How God Changes Your Brain, Breakthrough Findings from a Leading Neuroscientist, okay? And so already we have a contradiction right here that he's basically saying, okay, we can't find the self in science, so we know it doesn't exist. But he's not asking the question, well, where is the consciousness in science? He doesn't have it. And let me just show it to you here. And I know my friend wants me to ask chat about some things. I just can't get distracted right now unless you want to be a customer and come up. Okay, so right now I'm doing reactions. If you want to come up, you can. If not, you got my short answer, and we'll see if I can get into Islam in just a little bit. Okay, now watch. I'm just going to be putting in here, unbiased. Has science solved the problems of hard and soft consciousness? Yes or no? And then briefly describe the problems, okay? So I want you to see, this is not just me making this up, okay? So has science solved the hard and soft problems of consciousness? No, it hasn't. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see it, okay? Hope that you guys can read that pretty good. Has it solved it? No. So there's nothing in science that proves the consciousness, just like there's nothing in science that proves the self. So we're at the same starting place. And then most of the ways he's describing the self and saying is an illusion is going to be the same way he describes consciousness. Okay, so we'll get into that in just a moment. And then the soft problem or the easy problem of consciousness is, how does the brain integrate information? We have no idea. Okay, how do attention, memory, perception, and decision making work? We have no idea. We know that while we do these things, as I had up here from Newberg's book, I keep wanting to call him Neuenberg, but from Newberg's book, we have here the pictures of the brain. Let me see here. Where do I have the brain here? The self is an illusion. No, let me go here. Sorry. Got all these chats opened up. Let me go here to the picture of the brain. It's always so funny. I have all these notes, and then I won't use those, and then I'll go totally off topic on the things that I have to randomly look up. So I do appreciate your patience. And this is where I kind of stopped myself yesterday going, dude, I'm just getting too nerdy here. Okay. So when we look at these parts of the brain and we look at how we function with memory, feeling, and experience and all that, yes, we see correlations in these parts of the brain. And we can call those like brain activity and brain states, etc. But what we don't, and that's a correlation, what we don't have is a causation for consciousness. And we don't have it for the self. And we as Christians are not saying that we can now go to this brain, point to brain activity, and say, that's the self. We admit that as what is known as dualists. Okay, we admit that. Now, as a person who denies the self, as Harris does, but then yet says that he is conscious, that consciousness is somehow different than the self, and that he can show it in the brain, is an exact same problem. So he's just contradicting himself, where we as the dualists are saying, no, we're not going to show the self in the brain. And I would say the same thing to him with the consciousness problem. Are you going to show me how the brain integrates information? Like, how does it take my sight with my hearing and then my balance, put it all together and give me what we call consciousness? Because that's what he's going to call consciousness, is how I see, how I hear, and how I interact. Is he going to be able to show me in science how the brain has memory that it pulls from? And isn't it something that you can forget something and know you forgot something, right? There's no memory in the brain that you're going to be able to paint yellow and pull up. Like as if you've seen some of these movies like Minority Report or other things where they mess with the brain matrix, okay? There's nothing here that's going to show you how we get personality or how we get our behavior patterns. You might be able to see correlation in these parts of the brain, okay? But you're not going to see like where my personality to be funny is and be able to extract it, okay? And so they think that they have solved it. And I would even disagree here a little bit with chat, because they are mapping it and they're being able to see how these certain parts of the brain are interacting. But that's all correlation, but it's not solved. And I would not even say it's partially solved. Okay. And then the hard problem is, why does any of this neural activity, things going on here in our brain, why does any of that feel like something? And we call that qualia. Okay. Why is there an inner experience? So what does it feel like to be me? What does it feel like to be you? And what are those experiences, those feelings doing and shaping us? Okay. And great neuroscientists have talked about that you are not your brain and how your experiences can actually shape your brain. And I have that as well, Dr. A. Men's book. And I'll just pull up my Kindle. And I told myself that I wouldn't get too deep into this because that's where I shut off last time. But this is Newberg's book on how religion affects the brain. Okay, this is what I'm using here, right, for this. And then I'll show you a few other things. Now, I just want you to notice this, that all that we basically have done here with Harris is that we have shown that he is not being consistent. Is Harris being consistent in saying there is no science for self, but there is for consciousness? And I'm putting in there unbiased, right? Is he being consistent and saying there's no self, no science for self? Short answer, according to chat, is that he's being partially consistent, but not fully consistent. His position is coherent at a descriptive level. Like he's calling these things two different things, self and consciousness, but it becomes inconsistent at an epistemic or epistemological, as I always like to say it, or metaphysical level. Okay. Now, here is where he's consistent, is he's distinguishing between these same two right here, right? But where is he inconsistent is that he's not giving any evidence in science for those things or how we are observing those things. And so you cannot introspectively discover to prove the discoverer does not exist. And he uses the correspondence theory of truth while denying the necessary subject. So how can I say I exist? How can I say my consciousness exists, but myself doesn't? And I can now look around the world and see things that are true and all of that when you don't have a self to be able to be rational. You're just chemicals in motion. Okay. Now let me just say this quickly, real quick right here. Also, I would add that he denies the proof in science for self, while not giving any science proof for consciousness, right? And I spell badly and I spell quickly, right? Absolutely. So that is my biggest critique right there. Okay. Let me see if I got any questions here. God doesn't feed bitterness. He heals it. I pray for forgiveness so I can love a Muslim without bitterness or hate. Great. I love Muslims without bitterness or hate. It's just demonic. I don't know what you think you accomplished there. Someone saying hi from what looks like a Russian or Ukrainian or some type of Slavic language there. We say hi back. Yeah, we don't understand physics. Consciousness is a level deeper question. Absolutely. He's in no way being scientific at this point. I just want everyone to see this. Like, I don't care how much he is a scientist in what he does and how much higher of an IQ he could have than me, right? Like that's not what I'm talking about when I say he has a donkey brain. I'm not saying he's a fool in the sense of he doesn't know what 2 + 2 is 4. What I'm saying is on a philosophy, on a philosophical level, on a metaphysical level, on an epistemological level, epistemology talks about not knowing things and how we know them. This is folly. He's a self denying the self and then saying, I have a consciousness that gives rise to an illusion of a self, right? And what I'm trying to say is there's no science behind anything that he said. So everything that he has said thus far has zero science backing it up. And then here's a person talking, I guess, I believe about Islam, is saying, ask GPT about Muhammad's life before 40 and what he was known for, why? He was just an ordinary dude doing ordinary things. There's no point. I'm saying that he's demonic because of the revelation that he gets. Okay. It's the same thing with any other false religion. If they're not hearing from the God of the Bible, they're hearing from demons and evil spirits. Christianity is a blood cult. Don't drink the symbolic blood. It's weird. I'm not a Catholic, so I don't believe that it's the actual body and blood of Jesus. So that's not hitting towards me. And it's not a blood cult in the sense of believing that blood has magical powers. What we believe is that when Jesus came in the flesh and gave that flesh up for us, that atoned for our sins because we needed an atonement. But I don't believe anything like about the communion or the Eucharist having special powers. So I don't know what you mean by that. And if you're just, see, this is what I'm talking about. And even yesterday, why I stopped live feeding, because I'm going so deep, and this is the brain rot where I'm at right here. So if anyone actually has anything intelligent to say that can actually defeat my position, then I would love to hear from you. But right now we're interacting with Sam Harris, being totally unscientific, philosophically absurd, and just being in the world of contradiction.
But more importantly, I think from the first person side, subjectively, as a matter of direct experience, you can look for this sense of self. You can look for the I in the middle of experience and fail to find it in a way that is conclusive. And this.
Who's looking for it? See, you see what I'm saying, guys? You can be an observer, which observers belong to the attributes of self. So what he's saying is, if you guys don't believe what I'm saying, so I just told you the self is an illusion, okay? So if you don't believe what I'm saying, you talking about a self, because remember, a consciousness is not a you. A consciousness is, according to him, just brain activity, okay? But now he then addresses you as a self. So if you don't believe this, you can now observe this. What I'm telling you, that you're not of self. So use yourself to observe. See, and this is where I would ask him some poignant questions. Does observation, does the ability to observe, and he's going to talk about meditation here in a little bit, does the ability to observe belong to what we're calling a self or to a consciousness? Because if you're simply calling consciousness states of existing, a state of existing, a state of experiencing, then you're not an observer. You're not rational. You're not a thinker. You are just a collaboration of chemicals in the brain, right? But he's telling you that he doesn't believe you're anything more than that, but he wants you to use more than that to observe what he's saying. Just listen to it again.
Subjectively, as a matter of direct experience, really from two sides. First of all, from the third person side, neurologically, it makes no sense. There's no place in the brain for your ego to be hiding.
There's no place in the brain for consciousness either. We haven't solved it.
But more importantly, I think from the first person side, subjectively, as a matter of direct experience, you can look for this sense of self. You can look for the I in the middle of experience and fail to find it in a way that is conclusive. And this.
So you can look for it and not find it. Well, who's looking for it? Aren't I an I looking for it to prove your point?
See, this effort goes by many modes and many names. I mean, this is something that meditation in various practices directly targets. People using psychedelics have had this experience, but there's a vast testimony to the perturbability of and the transiency of this sense of self. And I would actually say that most people, even if they're not meditating or taking psychedelics, they're continually losing this sense of self without noticing it, which is to say.
Okay, so you lose the sense of self in meditation and doing drugs, which, by the way, both of those require the self to do, right? And I have the brain studies of those doing meditation that they actually have more concentration going on while they are trying to lose their self, and the nuns as well, those who are chanting. So there's more of you at that point present doing something and focusing on something. But if you do that, you'll realize that you're not a you. Or in sports, what they call the flow state. So you will put into motion all of the practice, all of the experience that you have. You will focus this intentionally into your sport. And then while you are doing that, you'll notice that you don't really exist. Do you see the folly of this? You have to be a you, a self, to then take on his test to actually see if what he is saying is true.
You can lose yourself in your work. You can lose yourself in athletic performance. You can lose yourself just in an outgoing act of attention, where you actually the clear sense of self becomes kind of retrospective. When you take stock of yourself, you then notice it. But it is continual.
When you take stock of yourself, you notice it. My goodness, is this not the biggest bunch of word salad you have ever heard, right? So I just want to show you what I did from the beginning. If you have just joined me, I took this debate, and you can do this with anything. And I'm not saying that Christianity wins with chat. I'm just saying I use it to help me and to frame my arguments. And if your chat can beat my chat, fine. I don't care. I want the truth, and I'm using this to help me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask chat, show me, or I'll say here, cite for me 5 to 7 times where Harris contradicts himself about the self. For example, asking the listeners to use the self to discover in meditation and drugs how the self comes in and out. Okay. So now watch this right here. Watch this. Show me where he assumes the self to say that the self doesn't exist. Okay. And I'm just giving it to him in his own words. Okay. You can look for this sense of self. You can look for the I in the middle of experience and fail to find it. Does everybody see how this already is a contradiction? Okay. Saying hi, hey, what's going on? Don't mind stopping if anybody has any real questions. I am looking for customers, those who want to come up and debate. Okay. No, you want proof? No, I don't know what that means. Doesn't make any sense. Let Sam Harris go. I'm the only one here. Let's talk. Okay. Let me get you up here. Let me see here. Let me get the link. And then tell me what you are, and you can come on up. I know you're the only one here. I've done this before with one. I've done it before with many. It doesn't matter to me. Okay, now let's see if we have any customers here. Instead, for not telling the vision from Jesus Christ, you shall lose everything you have and be made homeless in disease and poverty, and not to buy food from your Omni barcode money. That is what you get instead of proof. Man, that is hard to follow, Wesley. Just put it in one sentence so I can follow it. I don't know what you're saying here. Okay. See if we're going to bring up this person here that I just sent out the link to here. Okay. And see if they're going to come up. This is the link. And Batman thinks he's going to come up and prove something. It might be about Islam. And so I just want to give you these examples as this person is coming up. Okay. He's contradicting himself. You, who is the you here according to him? It can't just be raw consciousness. Now, let me just show this real quick. Okay, let me just show the difference here. Make a chart to show the difference between Harris's view. And this was cool about chat is it will keep what I've already thought about put up here about Harris and everything. Okay. And then we'll do it in a new chat because that's why you got to tell it to be unbiased at some point because it's going to keep loading up what you've already discussed on your profile where you are using chat. Make a chart. Okay. Make a chart to show the difference between Harris's view of consciousness and what I term as the self, and show in one, what are we going to call that? In one strip, I can't think of the other, in one strip, how he uses the term for consciousness to replace self, actually equivocating. Okay. By the way, I have a doctorate degree, and this is why I love chat, because it saves so much of my time. Okay. Watch. See, here we go. See, he's going to use consciousness as the fact of experience and happening, right? But he's then going to have to do what? Show that there is a self or a person using those experiences to come up with an identity of a person. I see you, Ali, just hang out there for a second. Okay. He's going to say consciousness is real. I'm going to say the self is real. So we're really describing the same thing by different names. He's going to say there's no fixed I. I'm going to say there is a fixed I, but then what is he going to do? He's going to ask you as an I to do various things. So he's going to contradict himself. Okay. And I could go on and on and on here and keep showing you. He's going to keep contradicting himself. So summarize how he contradicts himself in 3 to 5 points. Okay. And I do this for the atheists. Ali, when you and I talk, we don't have to go too much into chat. I actually don't care about chat. You and I can not use this. I use this specific, and if you want to, I don't have a problem. But here's why I do this with atheists, is because you think that I'm just making this up. Now, once again, I know that it can be biased. I already admit that, but I'm just saying, notice in his own words and how simply chat picks it out. He denies the self, but he keeps the function of the self. Did I not show you that right here? While he's speaking about not having a self, he tells you as the observer to do it. Then what else does he say? You can lose yourself in work. Well, if I wasn't a self, what am I losing, right? And then here's another one he says, when you remember to pay attention, so you have to pay attention as a self, but then you will notice you can be free of yourself whenever you want. Tell me that's not goofy. Okay, so I think we've spent enough time about Sam Harris right now. We do have a Muslim customer. Let me remove this, bring him up. And I appreciate you, my friend. Hold on, let me bring you up at the stage. Let's go here. And you should be good. Go ahead and say something, Ali.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How you doing today, man?
I'm good, dude. How are you?
Good. So I'm assuming with a name like Ali and us talking about Islam that you're a Muslim?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So
I believe.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to multitask.
Yeah, I believe in one God.
Hey, listen real quick. I'm just going to mute you because we're already having a lag. So let's you and I talk without you being distracted and make sure that we're not getting a lag. Okay. So just tell me the branch of Islam that you believe in, and let's keep a flow of the conversation. And you just left. Okay. So maybe that was an accident. We're going to talk about Islam with Ali if he comes back. Some of my big pet peeves of going live is technology. I don't want weird sounds. I don't want it to be hard to understand. I want it to be easy. Okay. And I want it to be a flow. So I don't think that's asking too much. Okay. So just tell us what branch of Islam you're in, and let's keep a flow. And if you have to go back to your work, that's fine, or come back to me later. But since we got you here now, let's keep a flow. Cool.
So I don't really focus on the branches because I take teachings as an open mind, like I don't believe in this segregation. Like being a Muslim is as simple as just believing in one God and believing in his prophets. But the question I had for you was, like, you immediately called the prophet a demonic prophet. And I asked you what you know about his life. So I asked you to use GPT to tell you about what he was like before the age of 40, what was pre-Islamic Arabia like, and then we can build on that and see if this was a demonic person.
Yep. Yeah, I understand that. I actually wrote a book on Islam that's free online at our church's website. I'll show here in just a minute. I'll show you. This is a textbook on Islam right here. This is a non-biased textbook, an introduction to Islam. Okay, this is by Frederick Mathson Denny. And as you can see already, pre-Islamic. You mentioned pre-Islamic. I don't know. Oh, let me see. Let's see if I can get my hand here. There are sections here that are pre-Islamic, and you can see they're already highlighted. Okay, so I've read on this. I understand this. I don't think there's anything that you're going to say. Have you read Ibn Ishaq and the biography of the Prophet?
Yeah, the Sirat, I've dabbled with it. Like,
okay, so we're on the same page.
I grew up in Dubai, so like, you know, they teach Islam as a subject over there. So
yeah, I don't mean to be rude, but I'm just going to ask you a quick question. If I just showed you that I have a textbook on Islam highlighted, his life in pre-Arabia, pre-Islamic Arabia, and I just mentioned to you Ibn Ishaq and the surah of the biography of the Prophet. I'm not saying that I have to take a test from you right now to prove that I've read that. We don't have to do that. But I'm just saying that the fact that I'm aware of it and I have the books and I've written on it, does that now answer the question more clearly for you? That I've studied his life? Okay.
Yeah,
so,
I can understand that you've studied it. So
okay, cool. Now you understand. Hold on, but let me just finish this. Yeah. I don't want to be rude, but I just like to move conversations. Okay. But now do you understand the thing that I was saying to you, that none of that has to do with demonic and my claim? My claim is demonic is because of what he believes he gets in a cave and who he meets. Does that make sense? And I have no problem with you sharing now, but I just want you to see that his pre-40 life, his pre-revelation life, his pre-angel life has nothing to do with him being demonic. Does that make sense? You don't have to agree. I'm just asking, does it make sense?
I would argue against that.
Why would it matter before he has a revelation from a spirit whether or not he's demonic? I'm not saying he's demonic because of how he was raised and where he grew up and what he did. What I'm saying is what makes him demonic is what he claims as a revelation. What would that have? Try to change my mind. Now we're just debating on when the man can be considered demonic, not even whether he was demonic. I don't consider it an issue if he's demonic before.
So you agree with the axiom that like what he was known for, like Arabs still to this day they refer to each other as titles. So up until the age of 40, he had two titles. Do you know what they were?
No, and that's what I'm trying to say. I don't go into the depth of that because it doesn't matter, and I don't want this to be a lesson where you now. I don't believe he was before 40. You're not even answering my question now. I didn't say explain to me before he was 40. What I'm trying to say is connect what he was doing before 40 to my claim about being demonic and tell me why that's important. I don't claim he was demonic before 40. Why should that matter?
Okay, fair. Okay, so you're saying he's demonic because of his interaction in the cave of Hira.
Exactly. Yes. I can show you. I have a presentation. Can I just show you the presentation of why I believe he's demonic? Okay, let's not get lost in the sauce here. Perfect. Okay, thank you, my friend. Okay, let me pull this up. So what I like to do, just for anybody listening, is I like for people to be able to interact with me on things that are solid. So things like you can go back and research, like going back and watching this clip, right? Okay, so I don't want anybody to be taken like as a somebody that's just being set up for clip farms as I'm starting these live discussions. Okay, so here are 5 evidences that I give. You can screenshot it while we're here. You can drop it into your chat and say, I'm debating a Christian, rebut these, okay? But here are the screenshots, and I have all of the links to the hadiths. Now, this is just for those who listen to me, might have came for atheism and don't understand what a hadith is. It's basically the life of the prophet, okay? And most Muslims believe that if they're authentic, that they're to be taken as authoritative, okay? So Muhammad was intentionally squeezed by the spirit in the cave, and we can go over each one, but let me just lay it out. Muhammad fled home terrified and needed Khadijah to cover him. That's number 2. Number 3, Muhammad became suicidal and attempted to throw himself off of a cliff. Muhammad heard intense ringing like a bell and snorted like a camel and would sweat on cold days during revelation. And then number 5, Muhammad delivered the satanic verses. Okay. So is there any of these that you would want to contest from your own sources about the life of Muhammad?
No, none of these.
Okay, so now we have to ask ourselves, what does this fit into? Does this fit into the category of an angel coming to him? Because that's what you're going to call Gabriel, an angel. I'm going to call Gabriel a demon, okay? Now, let me just say this so it's not being rude to you. The reason why I do that is because I have what I believe to be the scriptures before the time of Muhammad's prophecies and all this. So we would put this in the mid 600s, right? We agree on these dates, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So I believe 600 years before Jesus, this is what our apostles tell us. Okay. This is what he says. He says, this is Galatians chapter 1, 8 and onward. Okay. But though we or an angel from heaven. Now, remember, we believe as Christians that angels can become evil and leave heaven. You believe that about jinn. You believe angels stay perfect, but jinn can be bad or good, right? Just to make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Okay. But from a Christian point of view, it's angels bad or good, but just track. But though we or an angel from heaven should preach unto you any other gospel or Injil, then that we have preached unto you, let him be anathema or accursed. So now we understand that if someone claims to be an angel, but preaches a different kind of Injil, that person is a curse. That would be
so who said this line?
This is Paul the Apostle.
And Paul was, can you give me a little about Paul, like what his timeline was?
Yeah, so sure. Paul came a few years after Jesus ascended to heaven, and he met Jesus.
A few years, as in, okay. He came to Jerusalem a few years after Jesus ascended?
No, he was already around at that time. He's a peer of Jesus. I'm saying when he became a Christian.
Okay.
Yeah. So Paul existed at the same time as Jesus and then became a Christian a few years later when he met Jesus. He was first a Jew who persecuted Christians, and then he became a Christian by meeting Jesus on the road to Damascus. So he's our trustworthy source, and even Ibn Ashaq mentions Paul as a trustworthy source for the Christians. Okay, Paulos, I believe is what it's referred to there. And so we can go through Paul in just a minute, but I'm just helping you understand where we're coming from. So if you don't think those attributes combined with what Paul said we should watch for as Christians are demonic, then explain that to me in a way that doesn't make him demonic. Explain why he's doing all of that and preaching to us a different Injil and not being demonic, please.
If you forget about the Bible for a second, like there's pre-Islamic Arabia where they have 360 gods, and then this one guy says, no, there's one God. So how is that demonic? Like, don't we agree on the axiom that if somebody's preaching to a bunch of infidels that there's one God, is that demonic in any sense? Because that was his simple message in the start. Like, hey, don't bury your daughters, give rights to your slaves. Don't, like, it was built on morals. And how is that demonic? Because we see what demonic is. We see war is demonic, and mass murder is demonic, and stealing is demonic. None of that stuff was promoted. So is this a different class of demon that you're referring to?
No. Think about what you just said. You just said because he did something good, that means he couldn't be demonic, right? That's what you basically said. You basically said because he did something good, he couldn't be demonic. So if I said to you,
do you have like scales of demonic in your perspective? Like, I'm just trying to understand what you mean demonic is.
Well, I gave you just one. If you preached a different gospel, he's going to be demonic. And then now I'm showing you these things, and I can now go through, yes, in the New Testament.
What is demonic to you?
Hold on, you got to let me finish. If you're influenced by a demon, you're demonic. Easy answer. Influenced by a demon, you're demonic. These are signs in our New Testament of demonized people. When demons come to people, they terrorize them. Muhammad was terrorized by this spirit. He was choked and told to read when he could not even read, right? You agree with this, right? When he first met the angel?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was afraid.
Yeah. Well, not only was he afraid and then becomes so terrified that he's shaking and he needs to be covered, but he's also then suicidal after that. Can you show me anywhere in the biblical prophets where they become suicidal after meeting an angel that gives them a message from God? No, you can't. But what you can show me is that a man tried to harm himself in the New Testament as he was possessed with demons. So self-harm is a product of demonization. Okay. Now, let me just go back to what you had said. I want to hold you to that same standard. You said, hey, Muhammad received a revelation that removed idols from the Kaaba. I'm going to say, so you're saying to me, when the Mormons give us a revelation about being married and being faithful to their wives, that's what Joseph Smith does, and promises celestial marriage, that now means Mormonism heard from God, and that's a true spirit. That wasn't a lying spirit. Are you going to agree with this Mormonism now?
I mean, Mormonism already came to a Christian land. Like people were already worshiping like one God, right? So like
Yeah,
Mormonism
sorry
fit
to
in this
interrupt. I'm
concept.
asking you to stay on subject. You can't be doing. Hey, bro, that's hurting my ears. I'm sorry, but you're hurting my ears with those dishes. Please, I'm just asking you to focus. I'm not asking you, is the revelation the same? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is your argument was, if someone claims to have a divine revelation and then they give you a good teaching, does that now mean the revelation is divine? And what I'm trying to say is Mormons claim to have a divine revelation, then say good things like marriage and taking care of your children. Family to Mormons is very important. It's a part of their revelation. It's a part of their teachings. Does that now mean they have a divine revelation? Do you understand what I'm trying to pose to you?
Yeah, but that's nothing new. Like that's what I'm trying to say. Like Mormonism just built on top of this, like already, like people already valued marriage, people already valued family. So how does that, like, how does Mormonism in any word relate to what we're talking about?
Because I'm talking about your claim. I understand it was a unique revelation. Okay. Let me just repeat back what I'm hearing from you. What you're saying is they were idolaters. He tells them to stop being idolaters. That's a very unique thing. You're saying Mormons were in a Christian culture that knew about marriage. Reiterating marriage is not the same thing. I understand. That's not my point. My point is your first argument of bringing up this was that, hey, Christian, Joe, like talking to me, hey, Joe, don't call him demonic. He gave us a good teaching in Arabia. Hey, a demon wouldn't give us a good teaching in Arabia. A demon wouldn't do that. Only God would do that. And what I'm telling you is, if that is true, then you would have to listen to the spirits, because that's what they claim, that Jesus and John the Baptist and these various spirits, Moroni, came to Joseph Smith. So I would say to you as the Muslim, believe these spirits coming to Joseph Smith, because they were told, they told him good things. I'm going to the foundation of your evidence. Your evidence is an angel can't say bad things. In other words, a demon, a good angel can't say bad things and a bad angel can't say good things. And I'm telling you that bad angels can say good things in lies. They tell partial truths. Does that make sense? Looks like you're frozen. Chat, if you're following along, tell me you're getting this. We got some customers here. This guy's just going on about the end times. Wesley, there is no point in spamming this whole time. I don't even know who's even reading this. I'm not even paying attention. You're going to have to slow down. I'm not asking if you agree, Ali, because I see you're back here, but do you understand what I am asking you about your foundation for making evidence? You said this is evidence. A demon couldn't say a good thing, and
okay, so you're okay. Okay, fair. So we can agree that a demon can say good things and bad things on his own agency. Like I assumed that's the assumption I made, which I could be totally wrong, that a demon works against God and everything he stands for.
Okay, so now you see that doesn't work. Yeah, but now you see that demons can tell good things, because otherwise you would have to be a Mormon, right?
Right. Okay.
Okay, so do you have any other evidence that this is not demonic? Let's just review. You can't show me in our scriptures, the Torah or the Injil or the Zabar that comes before your scriptures, anyone receiving a revelation where it's done like this, right? You can't point to me any place where Isaiah, Jeremiah, any other prophet had this, right? Just to make sure in review, correct?
Not to my knowledge, but we could ask GPT.
Yeah,
like
you can
compare Muhammad's experience
I promise you that you can. I'll let you do that. I won't do the work for you, but I promise you there's nothing here. The only similarity, and I'll give you what I believe chat will tell you, the only similarity is that at times when they receive or first encounter the angel, they are terrified. Absolutely, no doubt. But then in the presence of the angel, they are comforted and they are strengthened. In other words, they don't leave the encounter with the angel in so much terror that they need someone else to comfort them. The comfort comes in the revelation. He left the revelation very terrified, needing outside comfort. So the angel could not give him comfort. And that would go to what we believe about demonic spirits. Demonic spirits cannot comfort your heart and give you peace. So why didn't this spirit give him peace after he was afraid and say, like how our angels in our scriptures say, peace be to you. Don't be afraid. I'm going to strengthen you. And then they'll lift, because they normally fall down, the prophets do. And then they lift them up, and it will talk about my strength returned to me. And, and then the vision or the revelation will continue. Okay, so we agree on that. The second thing is that when you look to our scriptures, if you change our doctrines, these come from demons. Let me show you another one I showed you in Galatians. So the Bible is very clear to us that when you listen to a spirit, and if it's not teaching you the truth, you are now listening to what the Bible says are doctrines of demons. And let me just make sure you and I are on the same page. Would you believe that there are spirits in the world, jinn, that try to teach people things that are false, like they try to deceive them?
Can you repeat that? You cut off a little bit.
Sorry. Do you believe that there are evil jinns that try to teach people false things about God?
Yeah, just like how there are, yeah, agreed.
Just like there's bad people, right? Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to clarify that because we as Christians have that hundreds of years before Muhammad as well. And notice this is our warning here. But the Spirit expressly says that in the latter time, some shall fall away from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of demons. So if I came to you today, say as someone who believes in the Nation of Islam, and I'm in the Chicagoland area, have you ever heard of the Nation of Islam?
Yeah.
Okay. And if you heard about the story of Elijah Muhammad and the teachings that he gave, would you say that came from a good angel or from an evil angel?
I don't know if there was even an angel involved in that process, Like,
Well, we disagreed. So let me just back up here. So you believe that demons can teach false things, or jinn can teach false things, correct?
Yeah. And humans can also come to false conclusions on their own, imagining demons and angels.
Yeah, but if they claim that they have interaction with spirits and they're teaching false things, what kind of spirits? I mean, I know they could be lying, but what kind of spirits would they be interacting with?
If they were real, then yeah, they would be lying because they're like, they could be lying, yeah, or it could be evil spirits. But I don't know if Elijah Muhammad was interacting with any angels or demons,
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. Is if he did, and he claimed to have revelations taught to him by a spirit, or had a messenger guide him, okay? So you would then admit, if those things went against your teachings, your doctrine, that they would be evil and possibly demonic, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So in the Nation of Islam, they believe that Elijah Muhammad was, in some sense, a divine guidance, or that he gave them this divine doctrine. You as a Muslim, you reject that. How do you know to reject that? How do you know not to listen to what this man calls as divine guidance? How do you know that he's not giving you divine guidance?
I mean, he didn't claim to be a prophet, right? He didn't claim prophecy. He just claimed to be what did he claim? What was his claim majorly? Like, I haven't looked into Elijah Muhammad very deeply.
What I'm trying to do is test your epistemology. And when we do, we get a little bit more in detail than I want. Okay. So he didn't claim to necessarily speak to a spirit, but he claimed to be a divine messenger. Okay. He claimed to receive direct messages and lessons. Okay. And that this man right here, this man of Fard Muhammad, okay, was that messenger. Okay, so from Fard. So this man claims to give these teachings. All right. Fard Muhammad was Allah incarnate. Elijah Muhammad was his messenger. So Elijah Muhammad meets Fard Muhammad, and Fard Muhammad claims to be Allah incarnate. Okay, you get my point. So we're getting a little lost here. But now, how would you know that when Elijah Muhammad starts saying that Fard Muhammad was Allah incarnate, how would you know that's wrong, whether it came from a human spirit or a demonic spirit? How would you know?
Well, I guess we would go back to, like you pointed to your scripture, like anything apart from this is not from me,
Exactly. So now, if I, as a Christian, go back to my
What was
scripture.
that verse? What was that verse you shared with me? Can you give me the quote,
the context.
Which book?
First Timothy chapter
book
4.
And verse. Sorry, Timothy?
Yeah, First Timothy. It's another letter to us by Paul. Paul is one of the major teachers of the New Testament. I can show you this with all kinds of leaders. And I can show you this from Peter and Jude and the original disciples of Jesus, but I'm just using Paul because it uses the language that we're talking about right now. Okay. So going back to what I was saying, if I look at your prophet claiming now to be a prophet in line with my prophets, remember, we're 600 years before you, and then the Torah is thousands of years before you. And if we're now looking at your prophet, Elijah, or excuse me, Muhammad, and he's claiming he heard from an angel, but I look at my teachings, and it couldn't have come from a good angel because it contradicts my teachings. Do you understand now how I have no choice but to call him demonic, even if he teaches some good things?
I mean, was like, I think the Muslims also say that, like, like Judaism was for a specific group of people, different religions. Like, God has spoken to many, and Islam claims to be.
You're breaking up. Start over again, please.
So they say in Islam, where like God has revealed his message through like 144,000 messengers, something along those numbers. And a messenger of God was sent to each nation in each language. And Islam, the final message, was sent for universality, like for jinn, for mankind, and it was meant to be the final message. Was Christianity for it was for the specific group of people, like it was for the people of Jerusalem. It was for the Jews, wasn't it? Like for the Christians, like not the pagans, not Arabs. It was for the specific group of people in that specific time.
Yeah, here's this person saying Muhammad was actually a Christian before Uthman corrupted the Quran. This is a Quran, original Quran only Christian here. I love this God logic type stuff here. I love this. Okay, but going back to what you were saying, well, how would you know that Christianity wasn't meant for the world? Where are you getting your sources from to tell you that? Because our sources, the Injil, the only thing that exists as the gospel that was accepted by the church, says that it started with the Jews and it was for the whole world.
So the gospel seems to me like, you can enlighten me, it just seems like continuous addition of stuff, right? Because they weren't written or even recorded in the time of Jesus. Like we have so many books upon books upon books. Where does it all end? Like your own testament, where you're saying that anything revealed after this is demonic, but there are multiple add-ons and books hundreds of years after Jesus that are in the Bible, and you don't claim those to be demonic?
No, those are demonic. The false testimonies of Jesus are demonic. And basically you entered into another conversation here, which I don't mind having with you, but it's, can you solve the Quranic dilemma? And I don't mind parking here for a little bit, but I just want you to notice that you've basically conceded the argument and you've affirmed my premises. And in other words, you cannot knock them down. You have to now change the argument. So now what you're doing is you're saying, Joe, if you're using your Bible as a standard to mark my prophet as a false prophet or demonic prophet, I'm now going to question your standard. And the problem with that is your Bible, or your Quran rather, your book actually affirms my standard. And we're going to have to now leave this argument of Islam being demonic to actually the Quranic dilemma, okay? But before we leave that argument, I want to stay right here, just where we originally started. And I want to show you that in your own records, you have a prophet acting and being treated as if he's meeting a demon and being demon possessed. You have no explanation from prior prophets to defend this prophet.
You're saying no prophet was afraid?
But what did I say? They were comforted by the angel. They were comforted by the angel, my friend. They were not left in a state of terror where someone had to then come alongside of them and then comfort them. And let me just ask you this. Did the angel comfort Muhammad and give him strength and he left the meeting with strength, meeting the angel, or did someone outside other than the angel have to comfort him outside of the meeting? Looks like we lost you. Compare Muhammad's reaction to meeting Gabriel to prophets and how prophets were strengthened in the meeting. Now, once again, you can look this up on your own. I always use chat because it saves me time. Okay. Now look at below is a clear, unbiased comparison. I use chat and I run it by other people. Okay. But I just want you to understand.
So I can run the same question on my chat and it'll give me an interpretation that I would like. I can literally copy this question.
Listen, my friend, you can. I'm telling you, you can. But listen to what I just said. It's unbiased. I'm asking it to be unbiased. You have to ask it to be unbiased. I literally, sir, I can do the same thing you're doing. ChatGPT isn't like this God form of debate. Are you not listening to me? I'm not using it to prove my point.
Okay, anyways, what I'm trying to say is that, okay, in that initial meeting, he wasn't comforted. And I agree with you.
Ali, hold on. I'm muting you right now. Please just listen. Because you ran past my point. I already told you. Thank you. Be patient, please. I already told you I'm not using it to prove the point. The reason why I use chat, I know you can do it, but I want it to be unbiased so that when you look it up, it should be very similar. And you just asked me, what's the difference? If I ask chat, unbiased, tell me the difference between Elon Musk and Steve Jobs as an entrepreneur. I ask it and you ask it. It shouldn't matter if I've been spending the last 2 years using chat to idolize Elon Musk. It should be unbiased. That's my point. Now, in putting this up, I'm not trying to prove it. I'm just trying to show you can look at the differences. When our prophets meet the Lord or the angel of the Lord, they are comforted. They get strength. They don't leave terrified. They don't then become suicidal. They then become courageous. I'm asking you this question. Thank you for letting me finish. Okay, my friend, I'm asking you now this question. Can you, and you can use chat. I don't care if you use chat. Can you show me something different in the scriptures? And you can pause and you can use chat, but can you show me something different is what I'm asking.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you can use chat. Yeah. I don't care if you use chat.
No, I don't specifically. I could use chat, yes, and we can like get in deeper. Sorry about that. I thought I was muted. But so you're saying that initial interaction didn't end in comfort, but there were so many more interactions with that same Gabriel that.
Yes, and look at what the interactions were like. The interactions were like an intense ringing bell. He snorted like a camel, and he would sweat on cold days. Once again, can you show me any biblical prophet that would have an intense ringing in the ear? Can you show me any prophet?
You're asking me about comfort. You're asking about comfort and on courage, and those all followed. So what, like, how? Why are you not acknowledging that?
Okay, okay, my friend, follow the points. Was any prophet ever squeezed unto death or to almost not being able to breathe by an angel?
No, you tell me, am I wrong? Was there comfort that you're seeking that these prophets all...
I don't think he ever came to a place of peace of mind, because not too long after that, he becomes suicidal. I don't think he was always under such intense, pain as he was in that first encounter, or intense fear. But as you follow the rest of his life, he's not a man that's chill, dude. When he's receiving revelation, he's never chill. He's not at peace when he's receiving the revelation. When the revelation comes again and continues to come, it comes with great pain to him. So he doesn't. It's like he gets the first encounter, and then from that point on,
he brings words of comfort to people. And even when you're saying he was suicidal, there were instances where Gabriel was like, "No, you are the prophet of God. You have a job to do." Like, there's some people can be afraid of their responsibility, and then you can see it follows. Like, it takes courage to leave your life and become something. It takes courage to go to a different city and take your followers there. It takes courage to reclaim that city. It all takes courage. And where does that courage come from? Like, you're asking for courage and peace. And there are multiple interactions with Gabriel where Gabriel comes in human form in perfect attire and asks Muhammad in front of all his followers, like, what is the message? And the message is simple. There's one God.
Yep. So what you're basically saying is that the spirit at times could deceive him and make him feel more comfortable than at these other times. Yes, I'm agreeing with that. But what I'm asking you is, why did he continue to have this pain when he received revelation? Why did the pain also continue? We also have in our scriptures that the angels can be, that demons can come like angels of light and deceive. And wouldn't you say that Hindus at time feel peace? Wouldn't you say at time Hindus have a sense of enlightenment, or Buddhists? And wouldn't you say that's deception? So we're not saying that demons are always on level 10, but their fruit still remains. Like, in other words, I have friends that are Hindu, and they'll have peace. They'll have some types of interactions that are fine, but their overall experience with these spirits and these encounters are very detrimental to them. Okay. And your prophet had ringing in his ear, snorted like a camel. Can I read one of these so you can see what I'm talking about? Can I read one of these? Would you like to?
These 5 things that have been on the screen?
Yeah. I want to read one for you here. Okay. I have here, when I was mentioning before you about Ibn Ashaq and all of that, I just want to let you know I do have the references there. But what I want to do is I want to read this one about him snorting like a camel and this situation that was happening here. And I want you to tell me why, after years, and you're telling me that he's supposed to be chill, that I understand sometimes he would come like a little boy, or a handsome young man, which is also sketchy to why this angel appears like this. And there's also some things going on around that could possibly be homosexuality, which I don't want to really get into that right now. That might offend you and close down the conversation. But I want you to see this interaction, okay? So basically, there's a person that comes to see the prophet, but he's receiving a revelation. And then the guy says, would you like to see how the prophet receives a revelation? Okay, so he says to him, would it please you to see the messenger of Allah receiving the revelation? So I'm sorry to laugh. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but this is kind of funny to me because how it happens. And so he's like, hey, you come to see the prophet. He's busy. He's receiving a revelation under a blanket. Do you want to see what it looks like how this looks? So Umar lifted a corner of the cloth, and I looked at him talking about Muhammad, and he was emitting a sound of snorting. He, the narrator, said, I thought it was the sound of a camel. Okay. When he was relieved of this, he said, where is he who asked about Umrah? When the person came, the prophet said, wash out the trace of yellowness, and he told him what to do. But do you think that this right here is normal? Do you think, like, any time our prophets were receiving revelation, that they hid under a cloth and snorted like a camel?
So that's where you draw the line. Like, that's where you're like, oh, this is the end goal, man. You can't sound like a camel when God is talking to you. That's your argument.
Well, no, it's one of the arguments. Is how in the world do you justify this and tell me that there's not something demonic here? Because it's not only that. Remember, I told you he's hearing ringing in his ears, and he would sweat during cold days. Right now, I am sweating because I am in a warm house with a hoodie on and like sweatpants, right? Why would somebody be sweating on a cold day when they're outside or intense and so forth? Why would the narrator tell us it's a cold day and he would be sweating? Now, notice this is what Aisha saw. Okay. Aisha said, I saw him with when the revelation came to him on a very cold day. So it's very cold. And yet his forehead was dripping with sweat.
Why could it not be? Why I don't understand why
because
this
none
is.
of our prophets had this, bro. I've asked you to show me
But
any
you claim that your own prophet was like murdered on a cross by God.
Okay. So now notice how you're changing the subject. Okay. You
It's
came
not
up
changing. It's like, so mental pain is okay, but physical pain where God creates reality and your prophet goes through physical pain of crucifixion, which we don't even believe that Jesus was crucified.
My friend, before we switch subjects, and I want to see if there's an atheist that wants to come up, you know what I'm saying? Because I want you to think about this. You're now saying to me, let's talk about Jesus on the cross. Let's switch the subject. When the first subject was show you why I believe Islam is demonic. Now you're trying to get me to question whether or not Jesus was on the cross.
No, I'm just trying to say that, okay, so the pain, how do you justify the pain? Why would, like, if Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, cannot go through physical pain and be interacting with God, but somehow Jesus can, in your opinion?
Because Jesus is being crucified, my guy. Jesus is physically being put on a cross. Your guy is sitting down and receiving revelation from an angel and sweating, profusely. There's a
I mean,
huge.
there's even like stories
What are
about
you
when
talking about?
Moses begged God to reveal himself to him,
Yes.
and it
Didn't snort
it
like
made
a
him pass
camel.
out.
He didn't sweat on a cold day. He didn't hear
He
ringing
passed
in his
out.
ear.
He couldn't handle even God said, "Okay, I'll reveal myself to you as a
Yes.
shadow on this mountain." The mountain dissipated, and Moses was just terrified and passed out. Like he couldn't even handle the glory of God.
That's
The
not in our
shadow of
scriptures. That's not in our scriptures. So once again, if you're going to use our prophets, you got to use our standards. You don't have a
They're my
standard.
prophets, so I don't know about your
Yeah,
standards
but
too. Like
your description of
if
Moses,
you can quote your allegories, I can quote mine. Like
yes,
it's
you're
as
not
simple as
understanding the
that.
point here. You're missing the point. And once again, whatever you're saying about our prophets and our scriptures, it shows they leave comforted. This man never left comforted. Okay. Now going back to this, I
It
have on the
doesn't.
screen.
It's never left
Hold on,
comforted. There is always
my
comfort.
friend, let me finish. Let me finish here. Let me finish. Thank you. Just let me finish. I showed you this. I have no problem now going to the Islamic dilemma. The reason why I don't start with the Islamic dilemma in the Quran versus the Bible is because there are many people doing that already. And I just wanted to start with something else. But everything always will go back to the Quranic dilemma. And now our scriptures versus your scriptures. Okay. So I just want to leave you with this. Are you familiar with the Quranic dilemma? Have you heard it before?
Okay, just finish your presentation, and then we'll carry this conversation at a different time, so I know
Okay.
what you're referring to.
I just want to
Yeah.
leave you with this. Do you believe that our scriptures and the Torah and the Injil, specifically the first 5 books of Moses and the 4 Gospels, do you believe that they're preserved and authoritative?
Just finish with your presentation. It doesn't like you're presenting to me, right? So you don't need my input at this point because you'll just
No,
mute
I
me.
get your point. I'm just going to leave it at this because I do feel like we did. I feel like we went to an impasse. Go back and rewatch the clip. Go back and do the research. Try to find things that are equivalent to our prophets and our scripture.
Show me the slide. Why did you take it off?
Yeah, because I'm not going to go through it right now. I have other people. I have an atheist that's acting up right here. So I feel like I only want to do really one argument at a time. And the only reason why I was going through that is because I just wanted to show it to you to squash this idea that you're going to have a different source for our prophets.
Okay,
But
let me see the slide again. Let me take a screenshot. Like I couldn't read anything. You were talking,
sure.
and I was.
Yeah. I'll put it up, and then you can look. I'll just put them up like this, and then you can
Or
go
you
back
can
and
email me the PDF, and I can just
no,
like.
I'm not going to send it. Just do it like this. Just do it like this right here. Here you have it. Okay.
I don't see it. Do I need to go to YouTube to see it? Because I'm on your.
That was my fault. Totally my fault. Forgive me, my friend. Sorry about that. That was my fault.
You're okay.
I was doing it while I was talking to you. Give me just a second here. Yeah, and then go back over it. And God Logic's channel goes through this continually, almost every like 3 times a week. Okay, so I'm just going to go through like this, so then you can check it when you go back over this clip. I mean, over this live feed, and you can watch the clip, and then you can see it right there. Okay.
Oh, I can see this in the live that gets recorded. Okay, cool.
Exactly. Yeah, just go back over and watch it, my friend. Thank you, man. Hopefully you'll repent.
Thank you.
Jesus
Christ.
Christ.
We'll get back into it.
Okay.
Lots of love.
God bless. That was a good talk. He was able to handle that well. I think everybody saw where we ended up there. And I have an atheist here that's talking some trash. Hey, dude, I got something for you. I got something for you right here. Let me just show you right here, dude. Let me show you right here. I got something for you. Come and get it. Come on. Come to the chat. Be nice. Don't use bad language and come on up. Okay, good chat. I agree. Yeah, man. Yeah, he did good. And I don't even know how to pronounce this name. It looks like it's in a different language, my guy, which yours have as a name there. Obviously, I'm influenced by all of the greats right now online. I'm actually the same age as Sam and David and all them. I've met them. I've done work with them. And so I'm definitely all with that. So I learned from them. God Logic came up through it, and now he's doing amazing. And it's just awesome to watch him. And so I wanted to put my foot in the pot, get my stank up in here, cook up something as well. And so my kind of contribution to this discussion is Islam is demonic and working them through that. But as you can see, you're always going to go back to the Islamic dilemma, because now he's like, well, why can't God, give revelation through ringing of the ear, snorting of a camel? Why can't God do X, Y, and Z? And then that's where we show him our prophets never did that. And I can already see that people won't like the way I use chat, but here's the reason why I do. I have probably 600-700 books here, 600-700 books by God's grace on my Kindle, and I use chat with people to try to move the conversation along. But the moment we get into the it's chat ditch, it's just chat GPT ditch, don't use it, I'm going to drop it, right? But I use it to try to summarize points, because a lot of times when I'm listening to these debates, we get so lost in the word salads and people diverting. I'm trying to help them. That's what I'm really trying to do. And so if an atheist will come on, I'll do the same thing, like with the lecture I was going through with Sam Harris, okay? So Bigfoot is alive. I appreciate that I have enough followers, 3 people watching right now, that I'm getting spammed by somebody talking about, I have no idea. So I appreciate the troll. I appreciate the trolling. It shows that I've moved past 1 follower. Oh, exactly. Okay. Latin for unknown prophet. Okay, cool. Yeah. So like I said, you can even look up my name, Joe I. Rostick, and you can see I've done debates with Sam. Sam's from Chicago. Sam and I have hung out. I wouldn't say we're good friends, but I would say I'm about as close of a friend with Sam as you can get, and not be a Syrian, and from Chicago. So I spent a lot of time with him. I love him. He's somebody that I pray for, and I hope that him and David Wood work things out, and that things can get back to what we're supposed to be doing, is crushing these cults and Islam and so forth. But I really want to go back to the atheist if they want to say anything. Otherwise, I'm just going to end where I started. It's probably not the best way to do live feeds, but I did start with, dunking on Sam Harris here. And I just want to end this with that. And the reason why I go to chat and things like that, and what I was doing here before with Sam Harris, is because people continually say, I don't understand. You don't understand. They'll look at the rage bait that I put up on my shorts, where I'm primarily attacking atheism right now, and they say, I don't understand. And one of the things that I want to show is that the reason why they don't think I understand is because I am holding their people's feet to the fire. And Sam Harris contradicts himself left and right. So let me just end with him word salading right now about the self while using his self. And then, yeah, exactly. Atheism is a joke. And that's where I'm trying to spend the majority of my time. But there's way more Muslims than there is atheists. And so I may just start with reacting to Islamic stuff and get stuck there. And you can even see right now, like IP and others are like transitioning to Islam, capturing Christianity, so forth. It's because there's so many of them, and it's hard actually to keep engaging with atheists. There's very few of them. They don't really want to come up. They want to spam chat, be chat keyboard warriors, etc. But just so for me and my brain, I can kind of end where I began. Let me just end this out. We'll hear from Roger Penrose, and then we'll close it out.
Continually interrupted, I would say. But to interrupt it consciously as an act of contemplation is very different, because then you can actually.
And if anybody wants to come on up, let me know, debate me. I will end on a debate if that's where we're at.
Be free of it more or less whenever you remember to pay attention, and that's a very different.
Whenever you remember to pay attention, you can be free of yourself. Well, who in the world is remembering, dude? Who is the observer of all of this?
Move with your life.
Let's bring Roger in here. Roger, does this idea of distinct selves make sense, or is it an incoherent notion? And just to bring in Sam's point from the get-go there as well, does it make sense to have an illusory self, or is that illusion a very instance of the thing which we typically take to be the?
Now, let me just say this before Roger answers this. This is exactly the point. It's self-contradictory. The host gets it, and Roger Penrose is not going to save Sam on this. He's just not going to be as blunt as I'm going to be.
I regard the question of self as all tied up intimately with the issue of consciousness. And if
see, now I just want to say this once again for everybody to hear who even cares about this as an atheist. So kind of look at this as a call-in show, and we'll take on all of the above, right? So if I've got your interest here in this and you're just tracking as a Christian, let's go into this. Or if you're one of the above, just listen to how I react, right? So I just want to tie this together. Notice how Roger Penrose says the exact same thing that I've been saying, that calling a duck by a different name doesn't mean it's not a duck. Calling the consciousness, or calling the self the consciousness, doesn't change it. Okay. So now Roger Penrose admits that Sam is really just equivocating. He's saying, I don't believe in the self, but I believe in the consciousness. And then he describes the consciousness exactly like the self. And then Roger Penrose, this Nobel laureate in physics, says they are intertwined with each other. That's exactly what it is.
If you weren't conscious, the concept would even
illusory self, or is that illusion a very instance of the thing which we typically take to be the?
I regard the question of self as all tied up intimately with the issue of consciousness. And if you weren't conscious, the concept wouldn't even be discussed. But I remember reading a long time ago now, example of a patient who had serious epilepsy or something, and they performed an operation, which seemed to be pretty extreme, of dividing the brain into two separate halves. I don't know how separate it was too. There's no doubt it was the cerebrum and not.
Okay, so all he's going to talk about now, I'm just going to end it there, is correlation and causation, and how when things in the brain happen, it changes personality. Nobody denies this. J.P. Moreland, those who do work on the soul, Alvin Plantinga, we all know this. So that doesn't change anything. We're not saying if you don't, I'm not saying as a dualist, if you damage my brain, there will be no changes in my personality. We have always said that the self uses the brain like a pianist uses a piano. If you damage the piano, the pianist, no matter how good they are going to produce different sounds. We're not saying that. So that's totally off topic, and I understand where he tries to go with that. And actually, the next woman, the next speaker, the woman Sophia, goes into that and says, yeah, we've seen changes in that way, but also we've seen people with really weird brain structures, half a brain missing, brain, not developing right, and them having fully functioning personalities and so forth. And so, in other words, when we saw the brain and its correlation in these parts, when it didn't have these parts, it was still functioning perfectly fine. So it goes both ways. There's a unique sense of change that happens with brain activity, and then there's other things that remain the same. And so we don't really understand how the self uses the brain or how consciousness arises from the brain is emergent, even if you take that as something that's happening. It seems like it can pull from different parts of it and emerge just the same. And then there's other parts that change, and it's not the same, but there's still a sameness of identity. There's still a sameness of memory. And even if you lose memory, there's the sameness of the self remaining, because she didn't says an example, well, this person doesn't remember anything, but they're still the same kind of personality. And it just goes on and on and on to causation is not correlation is not causation. Okay. So my biggest point with that, and the reason why I brought this up, and I'll get to the chats now if anybody wants to debate, is that when you use the self to deny the self, you are in contradiction. So my friend said here, from what I learned to debate an atheist, just don't grant them anything. Exactly. And that's what I'm doing, law of identity. And that's what we're going to say is that how would we know that we're not a self if we're existing? How would we know we're not a self? Like as if we were a computer or a brain in a vat or something that wasn't a self. We would never be able to know. So the very fact that we are a self, we're always going to have to identify as the self. Now, calling that self a consciousness doesn't change the attributes of what we're experiencing. We're experiencing identity. We're experiencing qualia. We're experiencing experiences where we're rational or irrational. We're having observations, all of this, right? And anytime you deny that, you go into madness. All right. So is there anybody here that wants to debate before I go? This person was just mocking here how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. Who cares? And this is like a typical atheist, like hearing two theists debate. Why does it matter? And then yet they can't even explain existence itself, and that's just ridiculous. My invisible, non-demonstrable God has a bigger blank than your invisible, non-demonstrable. Yeah, see, like that's just foolishness. Well, tell me who or what gives you any foundation for logic. Where does it come from without applying to God? Oh, it's just there, science. And that's where I would love for you to come up, and I would show you how doing more science never proves science. With the problem of induction, I have Hume's writings locked and ready to go. I have books ready to bring out to you. So come on up. I'll use your own prophets and popes to show you what you're saying is nonsense. And unless you ground those things in a metaphysical principle, you don't know if you're a poached egg or not. And that's according to your guys. That's your guys. That's your people. And most of the time, you don't even read your people, and you mock us because we take our people more serious than you. We take our apostles more serious than you take your apostles. Okay. All right, my friends, thanks for joining me. I'll just read this out. Exactly. Doesn't matter. The subjective word we use to describe a thing to thing is still the thing. No violation of the law of identity. Exactly. Oh, here we go. We might have a potential customer here. Oh, I think this is with us. Muhammad, Buddha, Joseph Smith, and all the other gods or false prophets fasted when they went to a wilderness, like Jesus was tempted by Satan, God in the flesh, so he didn't bow to Satan. Muhammad and all these other people couldn't defeat Satan. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. I like the way you're seeing that. That when the experiences of a lot of spiritual people in deserts or in wildernesses happened, they weren't able to discern good from evil. And in one sense, evil conquered them. And yet Jesus goes to the wilderness, which is a motif of where prophets would be. And even at that time, there was an understanding that spirits roamed the wilderness, hence why he would even go there, right, in pre-Islamic Arabia. And yet we see them getting defeated by the deception, by the deception, they're defeated. And yet Jesus in that time with 40 days of fasting, and if there's any time you're going to hallucinate or any time you're going to be emotionally unstable, it's after not eating and having substance, right, for 40 days. He goes into that place and defeats that evil. Wow, that's powerful. You gave me something to think about there, Vic. I think I know who you are. I think that's in Chicago, right? Don't you go to our church, Vic? Let me know if you do. If not, this was a great comment. Yeah, very well said, Vic. Let me know if you come to our church. You do seem familiar there. And I don't mind hanging out with anybody. I do like ops only. And let me just say this, that if you have anybody that you're discussing things with and you think that they may want to be a customer, have them come on up, because I'll set up a chat for them as well. I just want to stay on subjects. As you can see with that Muslim that we had up, talking about the Islamic dilemma, after I just spent all that time showing Islam is demonic, and he didn't get anywhere. I just didn't feel like going to somewhere else where we could also not get anywhere. But it is the foundation, I think, with dealing with Muslims, because you're always going to run into that is, what gives you the authority to say what you're saying about our prophet? And it's the very books that they affirm. And then when you're dealing with atheists, I like what my friend said here. You don't grant them anything, don't grant them science, man. Where does science come from? And atheism. Like I have here, Alex Rosenberg's book that says, hey, I don't, like, is there free will? Is there any of this? And he's like, no, I only listen to what science says. Well, science doesn't say anything. So why in the world would I grant this guy science when he's denied the God of science? So when people say, I don't believe in God, I believe in science. I can only believe in science because of God. So ask the atheist to ground their science. Tell me where science comes from. And I have these other arguments ready for them whenever they come. And one of them is I grant them the emergence of consciousness, which I don't have to. And if I'm sassy, I won't. But if I want to even make it easy for them, I will grant them consciousness, like Sam Harris's worldview, being emergent. But then I ask them to ground how consciousness corresponds to any reality. And so this is where you'll have people say, like, atheism is not a worldview. It's just a lack of belief. We can be materialist. We can be naturalist. We can be Platonist, etc. So basically, I divert that whole thing. I divert this whole argument of all these different views that they can have. And then I also divert the argument of where the self or the consciousness comes from. So everything we just talked about here, I'll just move past that and say, I'll grant to you that the consciousness is not the self. Like, that's how you want to see it. Then that's how I'll grant it to you. And I'll also grant to you that it's emergent, that it emerges. That's what they always try to say, is that music is not a thing in of itself. Music is produced by things coming together, like vocal cords, sounds, and notes, and all of that, and then it emerges into this new thing. They'll say, like, consciousness and any ideas of the self are emergent. So I'll grant that to them, and then I'll show them that it's either supernatural or natural. And I have this whole thing I go through, and I would love to go through somebody with that, because it brings them to the same place. And if anybody listened to Jim Bob's debate that he just recently had with Planet Peterson on modern day debate, he basically went to this same thing. He didn't grant him. I don't believe he granted him anything, which you're not supposed to as a presuppositionist, which I am. But I'm willing to do that, because once again, there's great people doing presuppositionalism. You have like Andrew Wilson, you have Jay Dyer, you have all of the Calvinist crew, Eli, Jeff Durbin. You have all these guys doing it. So what I'm trying to do is just move that conversation forward. But we'll see if that ever comes up, because what I'm noticing with atheists, it's hard to get them to be a customer. It's hard to get them to come up. So do you think it's okay to use violence to defend Christianity? Yes, I do believe in just war theory. And so if Christians are being innocently mistreated, you can use violence against them. And so you would see this like when Jesus said to them that, if you get slapped, turn the cheek. I believe that's in, political suffering, or we would call like interpersonal suffering. But when you want to look to like how he looked at war and how he allows war, you can look to Romans when it talks about the Paul saying that the servant carries the sword and he's a minister of justice, and then the Old Testament concept of war as well. So even though we may not have divine commands to take promised lands, we can understand that when we are in war, we are to have we can use a certain level of violence. Yeah. So Here's my friend. Yeah, you and I are tracking here. Yeah, atheists usually have a category error. The opposite of atheism is theism, both broad terms. Yep. Yeah, you and I would be friends. Are you anywhere in the Chicagoland area? Just curious to where you're listening to. And the only time that violence is evil in the Bible is when it's used in an evil way. So violence would be like a tool. And if the tool is used in an evil way, then it would be evil. But if you just mean like war is a tool that God can use to bring peace in the land and to defend the innocent. So you're in Florida. Very cool, man. You guys got some great weather out there. I'm sure we're in about 12 inches of snow, which is fun for me as a snowboarder, which is what I'm going to do sometime today. So thank you guys for watching. This was one of the first times I had a customer up here. Please share if you care or just check in. You know, it's a small channel. I've been in this space for a long time. Just to show you here, my friend, just to show you, I can see that you've been around for a while. You can look at Sam and I, doing debates or different people that I've done. I've actually debated Nadir Ahmed in my church. Here, Joe Y. Rostick, Sam Shimon. I know he's going through a lot right now with these guys, but you can see Sam and I debating together. Here's some Black Hebrew Israelites. Here I am, and here is Sam. We used to have fun together. I think Albie was in the audience there. Here's Sam at my church doing some teaching over here. Of course, we're going to catch a commercial. And I don't have stuff with David Wood and I, but the time that he came to Chicago, we went out to the thing and did stuff together, trying to see what else is out here. The archive had a video with me and him. I think it was once again with the Black Hebrew Israelites. Yeah. So anyways, been out there. You've never actually seen snow in real life? Crazy. We got so much right now, my guy. So much. All right, man, I'm going to close it out here. Hour and a half. Thank you guys for coming. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your week. God